Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey, it's so great to have you on Life Support. What we do on this program is we talk about Jesus, we talk about redemption, we tell stories of those who maybe were in a hard place, but God reached down and touched them, and now they have amazing stories to tell. And our guest is back that has a great story to tell. His name is Bob Lott. He's the senior pastor at Casa de Oro Church, Bible Church in Spring Valley, California, which is in San Diego, which is warm. So we don't like Bob right now, but we will like him later in the summer when we're not all freezing to death. Bob, thanks for being back. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Paul. Great to be here.
Last segment, we talked a lot about your background, and just I'll do a quick recap. You can stop me if I mess this up, but you grew up in a Christian home. You made some bad decisions. You ended up with a life sentence in prison that you just, when did you get out, Bob, from prison?
It was a 20-year sentence, so it was a determinant. I got out in 2015.
Okay,
10 years ago.
And meanwhile, while you were in, God began to touch your life in amazing ways. And I'm especially intrigued by the fact that not only did God allow you to begin to get a degree, but you became the chaplain of the institution. How did that happen?
Well, our chaplain was fired. He was kept out of the institution during a hiring freeze with the state of California, and I used the department's operational manual and petitioned the warden to allow me to facilitate services in the Protestant chapel.
That's the first time it's ever happened, right, in that prison system?
The way that it went, well, see, according to the operational manual, the warden can, or even the chaplain can use inmates to facilitate services and help run services. But I don't think it has ever been to the point where, it was basically the whole chapel was inmate led. We had one volunteer from the outside, great man of God that stepped in to help us out. And, he made all our phone calls and did all the stuff we couldn't do, and just helped us keep the church. And that's what we call it. It's an incarcerated church. We kept the incarcerated church running.
I like that. It's a great name. In fact, all our churches probably feel like that on Sunday morning to some of our people. So maybe we should all call it incarceration on Sunday or something.
Yeah.
So you mentioned incarcerated church, and right now your church, because of your background, is full of those who have been incarcerated, and it's because of the fact they feel safe with you. Obviously, they identify with you. You and I have mutual friends that have all kinds of different churches.
Mm-hmm.
We have a mutual friend who has a really thriving church here in the Twin Cities. We have a friend who's a young man down in Arizona that's, struggling in a small church, but he's really trying hard and doing a great job. Every church is different. Every church has a different calling. So when you think about your church, what would you say is aside from the Great Commission, which is all of our calling, but how does your church fit into the Great Commission because of the kinds of folks that come and visit you?
Well, I think that, we have all kinds of people come and visit, but because of, my background, there's no fear of rejection. There's no fear of being looked down upon, because even the people that have never been in trouble, the older generation. I mean, we have an older congregation, that we have a lot of people that are 65, 70, 80 years old, couple 90-year-olds that love these guys that come in, and women that have been, incarcerated. So there's just acceptance here in this place, and they know that, and they can feel it. Doesn't matter what your background is. When you step in here for the first time, you're going to get hugged more than once, and I think that type of acceptance keeps them coming back.
Does that help you and your pastor, your assistant pastor? It gives you kind of a laser focus of the kind of people that you know you're going to be ministering to, right?
Well, a lot of our, because they know of our background, when we support a prison minister, a pastor in prison. So the church kind of knows we have this heart. The church bought a house, 7 bedroom home that can hold 12 guys in it to be a discipleship house. And a lot of these guys are incarcerated, former alcoholics and drug users, and they come to the church. And, so the church is all behind reaching the lost. That was Jesus's mission. That's our mission.
Yeah. And what's really cool about the body of Christ is you've got, church, you have a church in the upper scale part of town that, that's who's going to go there. You've got a church in the inner city, that's who's going to go there. You have a church on a college campus, that's who's going to go there. And all of these churches are all part of the body of Christ, and we all have this calling. And the thing that I think pastors need to, and you can comment on this, that pastors need to understand, try to figure out what is the niche for our church in the Great Commission, because all of us are here to reach the lost, to disciple people into a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. The question I think for me as a leader is, okay, how does Ridgewood Church accomplish that in our context right here in our city? What do you think about that? And does
Well,
that?
when I look at our church, I have everybody, people that are financially wealthy down to people who are not. And so it's not that this is just a church for convicts, because I've got everybody in here, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that for the first 4 years of my ministry here, it's all been about loving one another. So now when anybody comes in, they just get loved upon no matter who they are.
Yeah.
Whether they're rich, whether they're poor, whether they're an ex-con or, even a drug user would still, get loved upon here in this place. And I think that when people come in and see that there's no discrimination, that it becomes a comfortable place for them just to feel safe and, come hear the gospel.
Yeah, that's really cool. My church, when I arrived here, had a DNA of loving people from the outside, and it is part of the DNA. The people that they're just like that, and
Mhm.
it is an important thing. And when visitors come, you go through the whole pastoral process of, you get their names, you follow up, et cetera, et cetera. But if they haven't been loved on,
Yeah.
they're coming back. And
No.
so, congregants have a massive role, an important role in helping grow a church, because you're the first contact if you're a congregant, and a hug goes a long way, even for
Yeah.
guys like me that don't like being hugged.
Yep. It's funny. I mean, what's crazy about our church is that we are not very good at following up, right? I don't do, I haven't been doing that, and the reason is because I don't need to. They come back.
Mhm.
Usually when we get a guest that comes in, man, you'll all of a sudden you'll start seeing them come in, and in that process, you're going to get fed because we eat a lot here together. I think that's very important for our church, and the size that we are. We run 120, 130 people. Man, I got a big enough fellowship hall, and I cook a lot of food, and boy, we just eat together. And when people get into that family type of atmosphere, they just want to be a part of it.
So that community is hugely important, and that's
Yeah,
really
it is.
important.
One of our newest ladies that have been coming, she's probably late 60s, and she just says, "Man, this just feels like home." And because everybody's just loved on her since she's been here. I tried other churches, but I just keep coming back here. So,
So here's a question for you, for the pastors that are listening on our vast listening audience here. Um, I've never been in prison. I don't understand the jargon. I don't understand what it's like. I don't have that identification with people. How can I help make my church friendly to someone who has? That I don't, maybe is here and looking for community and I don't know their background, or maybe has come to one of um, our groups, our recovery groups or whatever the case may be. How can a pastor foster that kind of an atmosphere?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is we don't treat anybody any different. No need to. We treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter. Like I say, um, even so, as a pastor, right? I don't know who gives what,
Yeah.
and the reason is because I don't want to favor one person over another, right? And it's the same thing about when people come in. I don't, if you've been incarcerated, I'm gonna know it because of the way that we talk. There is like you say, a language that we speak. I mean, there'll just be a little something that'll be said, and you'll catch on it, and you'll go, okay, I know where you've been. But we don't treat anybody any different. I'll hug the convict, and I'll hug grandma, all the same. And I think that to tell a pastor to how to help somebody, it's just treat them like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing is I don't want to be treated differently. I don't want to be treated better. I just want to be treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're loving everybody, everybody gets treated the same.
Well, that's really the early church, right? I mean, people flocked to the early church because there was that community going on that they wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
They were loving each other, they were supplying each other's needs, and non-believers saw that and went flocking
Yeah.
to the early church.
I think that's important is that we create an atmosphere to where everybody feels welcome. The outcast, the downtrodden, what did Jesus say? I came to proclaim the good news, even to the brokenhearted, to heal the brokenhearted. I mean, it's the same thing that we're all looking for.
You were incarcerated for a long time, and I bet there were probably some dark moments there. Could you have envisioned God changing your life the way He has?
Uh, no, if I go back to the beginning, I would be like, man, there ain't no way I'll be up in front, speaking in front of people. There's no way that I would be leading a congregation. I just want to fit in, maybe teach a little bit of Bible study, learn more. That would be good. But God's got His own mind, and He's got His own plans, and the things that He's put upon us. So, yeah, you go back to the passage that says the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable, right? Well, just think about it. God's had a plan, a calling, a gift that He's given, to everybody, and sometimes it lays dormant until God brings it to life. You don't ever lose it. But I never thought I'd be here.
Yeah. And there's probably some people who are watching this right now who are incarcerated who probably are struggling for hope right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah. One thing I shared with Zach about his family member that had gotten out was that man is going to be strong. You can either ride with him or you're going to be fighting against him because he's going to want to be spreading the gospel. Guys inside, when you make a commitment to Christ, you have to live that commitment in front of everybody who's looking down upon you, so you become strong. And for those people that, man, are sitting in incarceration, thinking that there's no, man, I never thought that God would have brought me to the place that I am. Don't ever underestimate God, because there's always hope. I mean, he never lets us down.
Yeah. What would you counsel someone who's watching who's incarcerated? What would be the first step they could do to find out more about Jesus if they're intrigued right now by what they're hearing from you?
So the first thing I would do is, I mean, every institution, one has a chaplain, but two, normally they have a leadership team that's inside. And what I would tell them is if you can't get to the chaplain, pull one of your homeboys aside who is a believer and just talk to him, because then they're going to have direction for you. But that's what I would do. Don't stay away, don't shy away, but really step out and get a hold of somebody and ask those questions. the thing about it, everybody knew who I was. And even the guys that were still involved in all the prison politics, when something happened in their life, they would show up at my door,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they
Way to go.
knew that I was somebody to come talk to. So there's always somebody, like that inside of your institution that you can walk up to and say, brother, man, I need to really talk about some spiritual things. And if they're truly a man of God in there, they're going to pull you aside and they're going to meet your needs.
And I know you're hard about this. How urgent is it that they don't just let these nudges go by?
That's just like the seed sown on the trail, right? Where the devil comes and snatches them. So if you sit there and you let it wait, then the enemy is going to take the urge away.
Yeah. And so don't wait. And what you might not know is that there are people that want to talk to you or are just waiting for you to approach them. And they're going to be so glad that you asked questions about God. So, Bob, before we go, tell me about somebody in your church that you look at and you just marvel at what God has made them to be and how you've seen them grow in Christ.
So I do have a guy here that he began to serve in prison, but yet when he got out, he was still a little rough and had little bouts of relapse. But I spent time with him, and he's actually one of my deacons now. And he heads up my our life recovery group, and he is the one that goes out to the highways and byways, just trying to share the love of Christ with everybody. This guy, and he's an ex gang member, from a Mexican gang member, and to see the change in his life is just amazing to see what God can do. It doesn't matter, who you are. Um, yes. So yeah, he's a great brother, and he's an encouragement because, man, he's always coming up to me with new ideas, and he's just on fire.
I think that's a great personal reminder too that God is never done with us. On days when we feel like I'm not really making very much progress or I'm tired of saying I'm sorry for this particular sin,
Yeah.
God's not done.
No, he's not done until we see him face to face, because then once we see him, we know that we've hit that perfection point where we're like him.
Yeah. So just tell me a little bit about the future. Like you have this great church going. You're redeemed. You're now out of prison. What are your dreams for the future for your church?
So I think that being in this cohort with all you guys, my thing is that I've kind of come to the end of what I know how to do, and instead of growing by transfer, it's time to grow by evangelism. So I've been preaching to try to change the culture in the church, and we have now opened up a couple of areas for our youth to be involved in the local high schools. Just recently, they've opened up to us, so we're beginning to pursue an outreach that reaches out into our community. My goal is to have a bigger footprint here in Spring Valley than just the church on the hill. So yeah, that's I think the vision here is to instill the culture where people are, as you and I both know, blessing people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to get that instilled into our congregation, that's where the gospel begins, is when you just reach out and bless somebody.
Yeah, that's where the people are. They're right around us. They're not far away. And
No.
what I tell our congregation often is that God placed us in this exact spot for a reason. This isn't an accident that, I mean, people were making decisions about where to put a church and everything, but it was all God directing it.
Mhm.
So he has us here for a reason. So let's go minister to the people that are right here because this is where
Yeah,
we are.
yeah,
So I think that's a great vision, and it's a great vision to get your kids involved, to get your students involved, because
yeah.
um, they need to learn that they can be a vital part of the kingdom. And sometimes we discount them, but they can be a powerful force for God if we set them
Sure.
loose.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great vision. And I really appreciate you coming by, Bob, and I really admire what you're doing. And you're really a story of redemption. And God has done an amazing work in your life. And it's been great to get to know you a little bit. And I'm really glad you dropped by today. Thanks so much for doing that.